Hi, I'm Zach, and I'm going to use the loophole of a freebie intro slide to explain why you should learn about outgroup homogeneity with me. I became interested in cognitive distortions when America heard George Floyd gasp, "I can't breathe." I worked with a team that garnered national recognition for researching methods to overcome hate and division, and our group learned that humans have more in common than we might imagine. Most importantly, we learned that examining our biases made us stronger individuals in a stronger community. So now, I ask you, are you one of us or are you one of them? While you think about that, pay close attention to the words and images in these first two slides. Page 326 of our textbook states, outgroup homogeneity refers to the fact that most people are convinced that their in-group, the group we belong to, is remarkably varied, while outgroups, the groups we don't belong to, are quite homogeneous. Outgroup homogeneity, in essence, is a 50-cent word for stereotyping. You notice that the two maps illustrate the same state lines but represent two distinct heritages. Why might we say Americans from Pierre, South Dakota and Phoenix, Arizona are totally different while assuming that Apache and Sioux citizens are alike? What does the science say? In 2020, Rejev's team looked at fMRI images while testing participants' response times in differentiating racial faces. Looking at the fusiform face area, they found it's easier to differentiate faces from racial in-groups. Because this experiment used only white participants, it's difficult to say if this outcome is learned or innate behavior. In a similar 2023 study, Zacharopoulos' team had participants compare and rate the attractiveness of two faces. They observed complex interactions between the gyrus, the ancilla, in both hemispheres of the PFC. These two studies show that outgroup bias arises in the complex networks linking visual perception, assessment, and judgment making in our brains. In 2022, Dogan's team led a study of three distinct ethnic groups from southwestern Ethiopia. Two rival groups and a third neutral merchant group played a 2-against-1 game where the two decided if they robbed the third. Dogan found that almost all would steal from an outgroup member but rarely stole from an in-group opponent. Dogan's team said, "We find that participants show a universal lack of concern for outgroups' welfare, irrespective of intergroup relations. Their findings apply to much of the conflict that's been studied in the last century, and I invite all of us to think about this as we live in a culture that has seemingly endless divisive headlines." So how does this affect our future? Well, before you buy a robot maid or any other robot companion, consider the outgroup homogeneity bias. Remember that upside-down face perception test from DAPS? Moment's 2022 team used a variation of this test for outgroup perception between humans and robots. Guess what? People perceive robots as if they're objects and not people. Don't abandon hope. Imagine an Israeli soldier caring for a wounded Palestinian, or vice versa. In 2022, Nav and Stephens designed a paradoxical thinking intervention. They found that playing videos of people helping outgroups while listening to positive songs elicited a positive change in attitudes towards the outgroup. I'm glad you learned with me today. It's interesting that we use so many parts of our brain to take the mental shortcut to stereotyping. I felt a bit sad to learn that outgroup bias leads humans to hurt one another, and I was surprised to learn that this cognitive bias has implications for the future and technology. Most of all, I'm left with hope. We can overcome our biases when we uphold our morals across enemy lines.